want a great team? You gotta build it, piece by piece. Start with a few natural-born leaders. Then you need some old vets who've seen it all, and a few youngsters just getting started. Tough cookies who don't back down from nothing. And some pranksters to keep everyone loose. You need strong but silent types, and a few not-so-silent types. Those with chips on their shoulders and ice in their veins, and a few who do anything to win. You find a cast of characters like that, you've got yourself one hell of a team.
He wanted us to play at a level that we were not used to playing at.
There were so many things happening during that time after the fame of Purple Rain.
Glamorous Life, the solo record came in '84, and I chose to stop playing as much. I was talking to him about it while I was out with Lionel Richie. I'm going to start looking for some other people to start playing with. I want to just play music and not sing. Okay, I think I'm starting a new band. You want to play? It kind of happened like that.
Brokenhearted, because at the very end of it, we looked at the credits and it just said, "Thank you, Wendy and Lisa." At the very last credit on the Sign of the Times record, we had done so much work on that record. It's very painful. It hurt like hell, but we understood.
He had fired him, put him in one room and said, "Well, I want a funkier band," or something like that. Oh, wow, you just fired the revolution.
I became the musical director during Sign of the Times.
But Sheila and her band's like, I'm not right. And once you get your thing right, you stop looking at somebody else. Stop being concerned with that, and you're yourself. And then you're comfortable.
The first day, he said, "Hey, thanks for coming, guys, but let me tell you something. I laugh and I joke. I'm very serious about this. So if you're not a genius, I need you to make extensive notes on all of the things that I give you so that you can study it later."
It made sense for me to be the musical director. When you go to learn the song and you hear different instruments on that one track, how do we play that? I was able to bring my band, his band, and then learn the music. I knew where all the tracks were if they didn't know it. So I was with him in the studio.
Prince went outside of his town. Musicians who grew up with him, they're mad. Okay, if you're disbanding the revolution, I don't understand why I don't get a shot. You bypassed us and got some strangers?
My musicians that I use, so they're all from the Bay Area as well.
Prince on guitar, he has a heavy Carlos Santana. That whole Bay Area sound was in him. He could hear that in me.
And he had a couple of people that he used. And so half of my band was in the Sign of the Times band.
Sheila E. and her band from Oakland brought a whole new flavor, but he lost something in the process.
That time period, transitioning from the revolution to a whole new group of people,
I was still in mourning. It was bad. I missed my old bandmates.
He's losing key members, and Wendy and Lisa in particular. Once it goes, it's gone.
I thought they were great players, like the Revolution.
Albeit significantly different than the Revolution, nobody's going to make mistakes. Like any Prince band, it's going to be rehearsed into the ground.
The rehearsals were crucial.
Very few people have the energy that Prince has. She might have had a little more.
The business was shifting.
What do you think about the comparisons that have been made about you and Prince?
I think with Prince, where we do bear resemblance is that both seem to be musical bastards.
He saw himself as direct competition to Prince. And so there was this competitiveness. We got this message one day from Prince's management company. "Prince really likes your stuff. Could you send all your demos over to him, please?" We went, "No. Why would we do that?" I think he was trying to get a march on his competitor.
We're going to the Grammy Awards. I was staying at the Le Parc Hotel. That Prince was staying at the Le Parc. We were both in limousines, and we were leaving, and this limo pulled up next to me, and the window came down, and Prince was in it. You know, he said, "I like that song." He said, "That song you got out by Jody, I like that." He said, "You need to put some changes in it, though." But it's number one.
Thank God, thank my producers, Andre Simone.
Andre sliding in with Jody. As far as on the women level, Andre kind of outpaced him. there was a read from home base that he overlooked. Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, and Janet.
I'd like to thank all the great artists we worked with this year. Force MDs, Patty Austin, Sherelle, Alexander O'Neill, the SOS Band, the Human League, Janet Jackson, because they all need to share in this, because without them, we have nothing to produce, right? Yeah!
I love Jimmy and Terry, but that first Janet Jackson record, they totally took all the licks from Prince. If you listen to it, it's the same grooves.
Who wrote that?
I did a demo with Terry and Jimmy with Janet. Nasty Girls, and she didn't like it. I thought that was a Prince song. She didn't think it was her image.
He drove by my house right after the Control album came out. He threw the CD out the window. I took it as an insult.
He pulled stuff from all of us. We used to practice. We used to always joke about it and say, yeah, tomorrow we're going to hear that on Warner Brothers records and tapes. Because that's exactly what would happen. But it was all good.
We were funkier. So whenever Prince wanted to work something out, he'd come with our band. And he'd come over and he'd start jamming. And we'd all start jamming. All of a sudden, somebody would press record on the cassette. We'd play for an hour or something. Then we'd walk out. Prince would pop up the cassette. And the next day, we'd hear something very similar to what it was we jammed on, So it got to the point where Prince would walk into rehearsal, he'd start jamming, and we'd all kind of go, yeah, I think I'm going to get something to eat. I think I'm going to, we'd be like, because we were like, or I'd be noodling around on the keyboard, and then he'd go,
Jimmy Jam, what's that you're playing?
What you're playing, Jimmy Jam? What are you playing?
His management got too involved with how to disperse the songs. Okay, we'll do this, and I'll give all my songs to these people. Every girl who they want to make a singer, or they needed songs. Now we need you to deliver the hits. That's how Sheena Easton got into the fold. Took potentially one of my songs.
Sheena Easton has a hit record out entitled Sugar Walls, and it's written by a gentleman by the name of Alexander Nevermind, who many people allege is Prince, one of his pseudo names, and a lot of people say he's sending a message to you through that. How do you respond to that?
Now please welcome Alexander O'Neill.
I was kicked out before I got kicked in. Prince had already decided that I guess I'm uncontrollable or whatever. Some people even said that his reply that I was too black. But see, Prince is black when it's convenient for Prince to be black. Alexander O'Neill have to be black and love being black all the time. He just added fuel for the fire. So I said, now I'm really gonna make it.
Well, Doug, that could very well be true, that he's sending a message to Alexander O'Neill, but I don't interpolate that as a lot of people probably think I do. I happen to feel that that's a very, very positive thing, and definitely coming from Prince. It's a compliment, and that's the way that I take that.
According to the papers at the time, Prince and I were living together. I had fired all of his help and was cooking for him. And we were just communicating telepathically, and then I left him for Don Johnson.
And Sheena says Prince is a true genius.
To me, he is one of the most creative, innovative, talented geniuses, and I use the word rightly so.
Yeah, David asked for a song. We got them together. That was all staged.
Then they all come out.
He's clever enough just to mimic the latest groove. I've only ever seen him tune into himself and be spontaneous.
Eternity, another one that I sang, ended up for her.
He played me the very rough demo with him just singing the melody, and I only heard it twice. Then he said, okay, go in and sing it. Can I take the cassette and learn it? I said, no, let your own instinct guide the melody. I went in and I put down my pass. When I finished, he went, that's really different. Sat me down and said, you've got a little bit of talent there that if you worked at it, you can increase.
Other people had figured out that they too could take pretty girls and make them sing. He learned from example of like Warner's slapping his hand. Then, is that how this works?
He put together a triple album and Warner Brothers said, no, we're not letting you put out a triple album because there's not enough profit in it. He had peaked with Purple Rain and Warner Brothers recognized that's unlikely to happen again. Sales for Around the World in a Day and for Parade fell down at that point.
He could easily churn out stuff that would be at the top of the charts.
Sign of the Times, the song, nothing to do with. That's him. But we did a lot of work on that record.
Beautiful Night, and there was a lot of
stuff. Strange Relationship. I mean, there was a lot. Parade and Sign of the Times, from Christopher Tracy's Parade to Dorothy Parker.
Sign of the Times, a little bit more of a dark period.
Most of that album was previously recorded right when I got in the band.
The tone of the record and the artwork is a little bit dark. His mood was closer to The Cross, Sign of the Times, ballads.
Crystal Ball was another one of my favorites.
Yeah, they were more upbeat songs like Witness, A Place in Heaven, Crucial, and it's like Sexual Suicide and Splash. Crystal Ball was true of Prince. He didn't want people to know that about him.
It was so hard for him to take certain songs off the album.
It was difficult.
Prince took the best of what he wanted and put it to 2 LPs.
Some of the things that appeared on Sign of the Times, Strange Relationship, I Could Never Take the Place of Your Man, was pulled out of the vault. It's Gonna Be a Beautiful Night, and that was an older song. It was recorded when we were in Paris with the Revolution. But we spent a long time on You Got the Look. You Got the Look is such a huge hit is because the amount of effort, focused concentration and effort it took to make that upbeat pop song. It was going to be a slow, deep, funky thing. He didn't like it in that lower tempo. Now, typically, if he decided he didn't like it, he'd finish it up, we'd make a mix of it, it'd come off, and the tape would go straight into the vault. In this case, he just kept working on it. He brought in Sheena Easton to add some of that energy.
You Got the Look wasn't supposed to be a duet. I got it wrong. I sung in the wrong place. He called me up and asked me to come in and do backups. You walked in, I woke up. And he went, I've got something here. This could be a duet. Let's keep doing it.
So we stripped down the whole top line. We very sped the tape machine to speed it up.
I punched him in on a lot of that stuff. Prince would overdub instruments on a track. Most people, there's only bass on the track. If you had guitar, there's only guitar. Keyboard, there's only keyboard tracks.
It made it a whole different thing, a pop thing. This was a major song on this record. Because we're working on an album and he knows it's going to be good.
Prince, he was putting music out all the time, just so fast. I said, you can't put out your music as it comes to you if you want to compete with Michael. Everything has to be a giant marketing plan, planned 2 years in advance. He looked at me like I was nuts,
Was in between the records, and I said, Mike, there's a lot of pressure. Why not do an album of cover songs that inspired you? Jackie Wilson, James Brown, so you don't feel like you have to compete with yourself. And he looked at me like I was from Mars.
Purple Rain and that whole situation, Thriller, that whole situation, I mean, that was a time period. And it's our journey, it's not for somebody who doesn't play music to step up and say, that's not as good as.
No matter what you do, you're competing against your previous product and everybody expecting more. You're really trying to top yourself all the time.
I wanted to do a duet with Prince and have the video with him coming to kick Michael's ass.
Hypothetically, you would win in a fist fight. You were Michael Jackson. Michael's not a fighter, he's a lover.
It is quite different from anything I've ever recorded. I'm not saying I'm like criminally bad. Back off me, man.
Could you imagine if they had ever performed together or did a song?
Bad. Prince and Michael would have worked together on that song.
Yeah. Now, Prince wasn't doing no song with Michael Jackson. At that point, the Sign of the Times era,
Prince had convinced Michael, if you and Prince are ever going to work together, this is the moment.
He sent that track to Prince. Michael wanted Prince to sing it with him.
So don't take
it's
it
a
too
good modesty.
It's a bold statement to say. I mean it in all goodwill.
He couldn't believe that Michael had the nerve to call it I'm bad.
It's like a way of saying you're cool, you're all right, you're tough.
He was like, there's nothing badass about him. No. He said not only was he not going to sing it with him, he went in the studio and re-recorded and sent it back to Michael. This is what it should be.
Stuff he just finished on the Cherry Road directing it. I said, Michael, let's invite him out and try to talk him into this.
So Michael said, Frank, set up a meeting. I want Prince to come over. The meeting took place at 4641 Havenhurst.
So Michael shows up. 2 seconds later, the doorbell rings. Prince walks in.
Bob Cavallo went over with Prince.
And so he comes out and says, Michael, you sit on that side. Let him sit there so he doesn't feel like they're ganging up on him.
They met, and Michael's steady.
They sit down and talk, and Prince says, I have a question I want to ask about the lyrics. And Quincy said, sure. He said, whose line is this right here?
The first line of that song is "Your butt is mine."
Your butt is mine, you know. I mean, that's street, you know, like, let's get it on, you know.
Now, I said, who's gonna sing that to whom? Because you sure ain't singing it to me, and I sure ain't singing it to you. Right there, we got a problem.
Prince brought over some sort of voodoo box. Michael was convinced that Prince was trying to cast a spell on him.
He said to Camille, he called Michael Camille. Michael thought it was voodoo.
It was not a happy meeting.
It was an interesting meeting. No rivalry.
She heard bad on the radio, and she called me from on the freeway.
On the freeway.
Like,
I had one of those
little
phones that I were on the phone after I heard bad on the radio. Whatever. And I was like, here's the single. Ba-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. And that was...
I was like, you're kidding me.
This is the single. And then we were both like, it's a smash.
I was getting to a point in my career where I could say anything. You know, I was given that freedom. I attribute a great deal of that to Warner Brothers. They didn't really censor my music.
You know, and I know that he gave to Sheena Easton to break up where his monies were coming from, and these transactional relationships compromised who he was as a person that African-American people were relating to. It worked for the crossover thing, but it all started to become very vanilla. Sheena Easton was white on white, sliced bread.
He had now effectively crossed over into the pop charts, and his music wasn't being played as much as it had been on R&B and soul radio. There's some criticism that he had lost his funk, that he wasn't funky anymore, that he wasn't black enough, and he just had this knee-jerk reaction that says, not black? Me not black? That really stung. He put together something he called the Black Album.